wealthiest, the most successful people are generally international.
The world is becoming an ever volatile, ever-changing place, changing much faster than it did before. There's a class of person out there now who's actually rapidly adapting to the changing environments.
The world is moving to global citizens.
Henley & Partners is a unique firm that is addressing the needs of this global citizen.
Like so many times in life, you don't get aware of the need until you really ended up in a situation, and then it's too late.
Where it's quite useful to have just options.
Ultimately, quality of life, education, mobility, security, and tax. In this international and global world that we're in, these are the tools you want.
Truly it's the ability to live where you want, travel where you want, raise your kids where you want, and not subject your family to the fate of where you happen to be born. You actually get to choose.
I find that Henley & Partners are a professional company, but they're also very approachable.
Very open communication. It's like you know somebody for 30 years.
Always starts with an initial meeting where we really establish whether we are the right people to deal with and whether the client is right for us.
Well, from the point of view of the clients, and I've heard this from so many of their clients, the word family just comes up over and over again. It doesn't feel so much like going and talking to a professional services firm. It feels like a family.
And what we found is when we turn to Henley & Partners is we get the answers right away, and it's straightforward, and the timelines are condensed dramatically, and that gives us very much a sense of comfort that we're in good hands and we're with people who know what they're doing. It's a fantastic kind of all-encompassing service that you get when you come to Henley & Partners.
They know what they're doing. They're professional, efficient, courteous.
They are providing a true service to these global high net worth individuals that are concerned about taxes, concerned about their freedom, concerned about the safety of their family.
And that's what Henley & Partners offers our clients, and that's what Henley & Partners helps create and construct for governments.
The fact that they have so much experience actually working with governments to set up these investor schemes means, A, that they understand them back to front, because they've designed many of them themselves. I mean, they're there working with the governments to create them.
Henley & Partners is really the firm that created this industry, pioneering many of these programs.
I'm not aware of any other company that has the knowledge of both sides of the equation so deeply, so intimately, that they can really claim to be experts on both sides.
That's what Henley & Partners does, and we do it very well.
this app.
It hasn't been such a long time since people first started shopping online, and it was easy to keep up with the clicks. Little by little by little by more, the clicks added up to be more than the stores, and e-tailers worked harder than ever before because they had to keep up with the clicks. The clicks came from laptops, then tablets and phones, Monday through Sunday, office and home, 24 hours in every zone, and still they kept up with the clicks. Now shoppers ask more from the websites they're on, their language, their currency, their way, or they're gone, so you better keep up with the clicks. All of a sudden, there are so many must-dos if you want to keep selling, like delivery there, no there, or there.
And make it tomorrow, first thing.
No time for borders. Gotta stay in control, to stay in the flow and continue to grow. But we'll help you. Keep up with the clicks.
The wealthiest, the most successful people are generally international.
The world is becoming an ever volatile, ever changing place, changing much faster than it did before. There's a class of person out there now who's actually rapidly adapting to the changing environments.
The world is moving to global citizens.
Henley & Partners is a unique firm that is addressing the needs of this global citizen.
Like so many times in life, you don't get aware of the need until you really ended up in a situation, and then it's too late.
Or it's quite useful to have just options.
Ultimately, quality of life, education, mobility, security, and tax. In this international and global world that we're in, these are the tools you want.
Truly the ultimate symbol of freedom.
Yes, being free.
It's the ability to live where you want, travel where you want, raise your kids where you want, and not subject your family to the fate of where you happen to be born. You actually get to choose.
I find that Henley & Partners are a professional company, but they're also very approachable.
Very open communication. It's like you know somebody for 30 years.
Always starts with an initial meeting where we really establish whether we are the right people to deal with and whether the client is right for us.
Well, from the point of view of the clients, and I've heard this from so many of their clients, the word family just comes up over and over again. It doesn't feel so much like going and talking to a professional services firm. It feels like a family.
And what we found is when we turn to Henley & Partners is we get the answers right away, and it's straightforward, and the timelines are condensed dramatically, and that gives us very much a sense of comfort that we're in good hands and we're with people who know what they're doing. It's a fantastic kind of all-encompassing service that you get when you come to Henley & Partners.
They know what they're doing. They're professional, efficient, courteous.
They are providing a true service to these global high net worth individuals that are concerned about taxes, concerned about their freedom, concerned about the safety of their family.
And that's what Henley & Partners offers our clients, and that's what Henley & Partners helps create and construct for governments.
The fact that they have so much experience actually working with governments to set up these investor schemes means, A, that they understand them back to front, because they've designed many of them themselves. I mean, they're there working with the governments to create them.
Henley & Partners is really the firm that created this industry, pioneering many of these programs.
I'm not aware of any other company that has the knowledge of both sides of the equation so deeply, so intimately, that they can really claim to be experts on both sides.
That's what Henley & Partners does, and we do it very well.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin. So if you could take your seats. Thank you very much for your attention, and welcome to Athens. Welcome to the World Ahead 2022 Gala Dinner. If you can take your seats. Thank you very much. So my name is Andrew Palmer. I'm the executive editor of The Economist. It is very, very nice to be back in Athens. We were here doing this event in July. There are some familiar faces. It's good to see you all again. And we have, thanks to the efforts of Nectaria and the team at Hazlitt and Rivas, a wonderful program of speakers, which will take us through till around about 8:30, which is when dinner will be served. I would like to thank, as well as Hazlitt and Rivas, our sponsors, for making this event possible. You have all got a copy of The World in 2022 at your tables. This is our annual set of predictions, our attempt to work out what is going to happen in the year ahead. The version that you are seeing is the Greek language edition, and I would like to call out Kathy Passaravikas, editor of the local edition, for her work in making it possible. Now, fortune telling is a very, very dangerous business. We got it very, very badly wrong in 2020. So we had done some wonderful predictions as of November. By February, they'd been completely overtaken by the pandemic. Last year was a little bit easier to forecast. We knew that COVID would be the dominant theme in 2021, and we were right. No big surprises there. What about this year? So I'm going to give you a very quick run-through of our thoughts on the world in 2022, and six themes in particular to call out. So the first theme is democracy versus autocracy. Now, attention right now, as of this moment, right today, is focused on the risk of conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And that is a subject that we will return to in our discussion with the US ambassador, I'm sure. Predicting what Putin is going to do is a fool's game, but I do want to make one point. At the same time as everyone is focused on troops building up on Ukraine's borders, and everyone is wondering what is going to happen, Alexei Navalny has gone on trial again today in the east of Russia. He faces another 15 years of imprisonment. And so while our attention is somewhere else, the leading opposition figure in Russia faces more years of isolation in a penitentiary. These are fundamentally different regimes, one a democracy, one an autocracy. Aside from Russia and Ukraine, however, this theme of democracy versus autocracy is going to play out in very many different places this year. We have several elections in France, in Brazil, in Hungary, where voters' appetite for the type of populist, autocratic style of leadership that has been popular in recent years is going to be tested. We think that Emmanuel Macron will win the French election easily. We think that in Brazil, it is likely, though, that Jair Bolsonaro will test that system potentially to breaking point. If he loses the election, the question about whether he is willing to hand over power peacefully to someone who has defeated him will become salient and urgent. But it is, of course, the rivalry between America and China, which is the most obvious contest between democracy and autocracy. And that rivalry is going to come into very, very sharp focus at the back end of this year, when, by a quirk of the calendar, we will have the midterm elections in America, and we will have a highly choreographed handover of power to Xi Jinping from himself, another 5 years as China's president. So we will have a moment where there will be a chaotic carnival of democracy in America, and there will be a very, very orchestrated and stable handover in China. And that plays, unfortunately, into the Chinese government's view that democracy is dangerous and unstable. Theme 2 is COVID and the transition from a pandemic to an endemic disease. In the developed world, where vaccine coverage is good, the virus no longer poses a deadly threat to most people. Other new tools are increasingly available, in particular new antiviral pills, which greatly reduce the likelihood that infection will lead to hospitalization or death. In much of the world, however, vaccine coverage is still poor, and one thing to watch out for in 2022 is the development of new ways of delivering vaccines via skin patches or via inhalation. Those methods are under development. They may make a big difference to how quickly vaccine coverage is extended in the developing world. And the other country to watch with regard to COVID is China again. It's the last big economy to be pursuing a zero COVID strategy. That worked very well in the early days of the pandemic, but it looks increasingly unsustainable in the age of Omicron. The government has spent a lot of time and money persuading people that this is the right strategy. It's very reluctant to abandon it, and so this year is likely to see more wide-scale lockdowns, larger outbreaks, and severe economic disruption in China. The third theme is inflation. It's back. Inflation is the highest it has been for decades. Until recently, most economists and central bankers argued that this was temporary, a result of a supply chain crunch and a rapid bounce back from the pandemic. But there's now much more concern that inflation is going to stick around and be higher for longer. It's continuing to disrupt supply chains, not least because of China's zero COVID strategy. Labor shortages are a problem in many places, and they have fed through to high resignation rates in the United States. And energy price spikes have structural causes as well as temporary ones. We have Chinese demand for gas going up. We have security of energy supply concerns with regard to Russia. And we have the enormous challenge of decarbonizing the world economy. So that's going to make for some difficult decisions for central bankers and some difficult weeks on financial markets, some of which we've seen already this year. Theme 4 of 6 is the future of work. Now, there is a consensus in most parts of the Western world that we are going to return to a hybrid form of work, a mixture of being in the office and being at home, a mixture of rooms and Zooms. But there are still some very big questions to be answered about how this is actually going to work in practice, and 2022 is the year when those answers are going to become clearer. So one question is about something called proximity bias. There's lots of evidence that managers favor the people that they see you at a desk, they see you doing something, and they regard you somehow in a positive light. So there's a danger that if some groups of workers go back to the office more than others, and women and ethnic minorities are less likely to head back into the office, then those groups could miss out on pay rises, on promotions, and on other opportunities. So the hybrid workplace of the future is coming, but it may be less fair unless people think now about how to design it properly. And that's not the only question. We have questions around what number of in-office days should there be, what level of workplace surveillance is right, where is tax payable if your office is in one place and your home is in another, and what is the office actually for? All of these things are in the air in 2022. Theme 5 is the techlash. So regulatory pressure on the tech giants will continue in America and Europe, but in many ways this is less important to them. Their big focus is on what are the big shifts in technology? Are they at risk of missing it? So this is everything from crypto to the metaverse, and we'll be talking later to someone with a view on this, I'm sure. History shows that it's failure to move with the digital times that brings the tech giants down, not regulation. Again, China is different. China is a place where regulation totally changed the game in 2021. IPOs were halted, celebrities were kicked off social media, the online tutoring industry was turned into a non-profit sector literally overnight. No new video games have been approved in China since July. 14,000 gaming companies have shut down, and $1.5 trillion worth of value has been wiped off Chinese tech firms' market capitalization. President Xi wants to show the tech bosses who are in charge. He's also keen to push them in the direction of hard tech, things like AI and quantum computing, not frivolous things like food delivery and ride-hailing. We think that's likely to stifle economic dynamism, entrepreneurialism, and add to worries about China's economic growth this year. And then the final theme is space. This is no longer the final frontier. Everyone is up there. Rivalry between global powers continues. China is finishing its space station. India is going to send a probe to the moon. Russia has just done a very provocative anti-satellite test. And NASA is going to drive a space probe into an asteroid later this year in order to see whether it can change its orbit. 2022 is also the year when there will be more private citizens going into space than government employees, for the first time ever. Filmmakers are up there. Tom Cruise is rumored to be heading into space. And all of this could easily be overshadowed by SpaceX's new rocket, which is called the Starship, and is so powerful that it could launch all 3 pieces of the Chinese space station in one go. It could well make its first orbital flight this year. So, on space, prepare for liftoff. Those are 6 of the themes that you will find in the annual at your tables. There are many, many more. And as an initial test of how well you know the calendar ahead and whether you've read this publication already, what we are going to do today is run a table quiz. On your tables, you will see a questionnaire. That questionnaire has a number of questions, as you might expect from a questionnaire. I think there are 10. And what we will ask you to do is to submit as a table, so not as individuals. Each table submit one answer. The winning answer will receive a very nice present from the Benakis Museum. So, quickly, the questions that you have to answer are: Brazil, France, and the Philippines will all hold presidential elections this year. In what order will they occur? Question 2 is: Queen Elizabeth II became Britain's longest reigning monarch in 2015. In February 2022, she became, this has happened, the first British monarch to reign for how many years? I'm sure you all know this. Number 3, which country hopes to complete its new parliament building in 2022 and turn its old legislature into a museum of democracy? Question 4, which country is going to create 2 million new adults overnight in April 2022 by reducing its legal age of majority from 20 to 18? And a bonus question: what will these new adults still not be able to do legally until they are 20? Number 5, which big country is considered most likely to proceed with a formal launch of a central bank digital currency in 2022? Okay, an anagram. Come upstairs is an anagram of which industry which expects to see rapid progress this year after a leap forward last? That's a test of how closely you were listening to me. Number 7, in 2022, German museums are expected to return some bronze sculptures taken in the 1890s to which African country? Question 8, a museum exploring the cultural influence of which musician will open in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 2022? Question 9, which kind of houses is Icon, a firm based in Texas, planning to build near Austin? And question 10, why should Northbrook, Illinois be avoided by people that suffer from fear of clowns, coulrophobics, in March 2022? I believe that's the final question. What we will do in the event of a tie, if 2 tables have the same number of correct answers, we are going to do a very arbitrary decision based on the prediction that your table makes for 2022. So can each table please also make a prediction for the year ahead? The wittiest answer, not necessarily the best one, is the one that's going to win. We will collect your questionnaires later and we'll announce the winners, I think, at the end of the dinner. With that, the main agenda can begin, and I see I've been joined by the US Ambassador to Greece, Jeffrey Pyatt. Hi, good morning.
Hi, how are you, Andrew?
Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Okay, Ambassador, Beautiful timing. Hopefully my microphone is working and you are mic'd up, so we are...
I hope so, yes.
Okay, wonderful.
The electronics are working, excellent.
You are, I think, going to give a few opening remarks, and then I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Good. Well, I mean, I can be very quick, and just to say, first of all, thank you to you, Nectaria, for the invitation to come back. I've been asked to speak about the year ahead in U.S.-Greece relations, which is a very easy topic, because we've really had, despite the pandemic, a banner year in U.S.-Greece relations in 2021. The headline, of course, is the fantastic progress we've seen in the economic relationship, enormous new investments, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, Digital Realty, the announcement just last week from Morgan and Via Wallet. It's a really new narrative in terms of U.S. business interest and investment in Greece. We've also seen continued growth in our strategic relationship. We had an indefinite extension of our mutual defense cooperation agreement last October in Washington, D.C., when Foreign Minister Dendias was there, which has proven, I think, to be particularly prescient in light of subsequent developments around Ukraine and the eastern flank of NATO. And then, of course, continuing to grow the work that we do together in critical areas like climate, where Prime Minister Mitsotakis has carved out such a leading role for Greece. So it's a very satisfying time to be the American ambassador. We're putting points on the board across the board, and I'm extremely bullish for 2022.
Okay, well, you mentioned Ukraine, and I think we probably have to start there, given the focus. And I wonder, just to start with, your sense of what chance there is of a peaceful resolution, what your prognosis is, given tensions that we've seen over the past months.
So, I mean, I long ago gave up trying to put myself inside Vladimir Putin's head. What I will say is we are working the diplomatic side of this just as hard as we possibly can. When I was ambassador in Kyiv, I used to say that Vladimir Putin could end the war with one phone call. That is still the case today. This crisis has not emerged because of anything Ukraine did or didn't do, or anything the United States did or didn't do, or anything Europe did or didn't do. It's because Russia has put 120,000 troops on Ukraine's borders, the largest mobilization of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea since the end of the Cold War. But I wouldn't be in this role if I wasn't a committed diplomatic optimist, and I'm also very encouraged by the kind of cooperation which we have, and the synergy and the convergence of perspectives that we have with the Greek government at this point.
Well, perhaps you can dig into that a little bit. What role is Greece playing from an American perspective as you negotiate the geopolitics of Russia and Ukraine?
So I flag a couple of things. First of all, of course, Greece is a core member of NATO in a particularly dynamic and important part of the alliance's southeastern flank. Our naval presence in Suda Bay is critically important and is very busy right now. We've also worked very closely with Foreign Minister Dendias. Very glad to see 2 weeks ago he traveled to Mariupol, right on the front lines, where Greece maintains a strong consular presence. He has also continued to speak clearly, including just today, reaffirming Greece's strong support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, with a special focus on that community of Greek Ukrainians, which numbers 120-odd thousand, right in the center of the conflict zone around Mariupol and southeastern Donetsk Oblast.
The other thing this tension, this build-up over the past few weeks has done is bring energy security front and center.
Sure.
So again, from your perspective, what role does Greece play in alleviating a reliance on Russian gas in particular?
So Greece is the United States' most important partner in southeastern Europe, building energy security and resilience. It has done this over a number of years. The TAP pipeline, which came online 2 years ago, the first new energy infrastructure brought online in Europe specifically to bring non-Russian gas to European consumers. So all the work that Europe is doing with Azerbaijan right now depends on the operation of the TAP pipeline. The expansion of the Revithusa LNG terminal here in Athens has opened the door to a dramatic expansion of U.S. LNG deliveries to Greece. There's not a month that goes by, it seems, that you don't have a U.S. LNG ship pulling in, delivering gas not just to Greek consumers, but Greece has helped to break the Gazprom monopoly in Bulgaria. We've also been strongly supportive of an American-invested project for a second floating regasification facility in Alexandroupoli, which will come online in 2023. One more contribution to the diversification of energy sources and routes, which has been a goal of U.S. policy in Europe for 2 decades now, and which Greece has been instrumental in helping to facilitate, not just for this country, but for Bulgaria, for the countries of the former Yugoslavia, a new pipeline on the drawing boards with North Macedonia, conversations with Kosovo, with Serbia, which is contracted to take gas from the Alexandroupoli facility. So at a moment when everybody is very focused on Russia's manipulation of gas as a political tool, Greece is in the fortunate position of not being particularly vulnerable to Gazprom or to Russian manipulation, and in fact contributing to the energy security of the broader region.
If I was in Germany, I might say, well, that's wonderful for Southeast Europe, but I still need Nord Stream 2. Is there a connection that you can draw between what's going on in this region?
Well, there's a lesson. There's a lesson to be had from what Greece has done with the TAP pipeline, with Revithousa, with Alexandroupoli, which is you have to invest in this kind of diversification infrastructure. At the same time that Greece, like the rest of Europe, like the United States, has been doubling down on the energy transition. And I would really put a spotlight on the convergence of interest and viewpoints between the Mitsotakis government and the United States on the critical importance of that energy transition and the leadership that Greece has established, committing itself to the phase-out of lignite by 2023, accelerating the transition to hydrogen, areas where American companies, including Greek-American companies, are playing an important role. So Greece really is the right example of how to approach these issues, recognizing that Russian energy is going to continue to be part of the story for Europe for quite some time to come, but nobody wants to be in the position where they are a monopoly customer. The key is diversification.
So let's widen the lens a little bit away from Russia and talk as well about China. And again, in the sort of wider geopolitical context, there was a moment when it felt like China came in and really left a big footprint in Greece after the financial crisis. Where are we now in terms of, from an American perspective, in terms of Greece's dependence, relationship, connections with China?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's the Chinese government that has described the port of Piraeus as the dragon's head of the Belt and Road Initiative in Europe. The United States has worked very hard to see to it that the circumstances which gave rise to COSCO's arrival in Piraeus do not repeat themselves. That means working to encourage other investments, including from the United States, especially in these critical infrastructure sectors like energy, like shipping and shipbuilding, like ports. That's why we've been so supportive of the 2 American bidders on the port of Alexandroupoli. That's why we've been so focused on the fate of the shipyards at Elefsina and Skaramangas, strategic assets for Greece, but also for Europe and for U.S. naval interests in this part of the world. I think on the question of COSCO and of Piraeus, the 2 things that I would put a spotlight on, one is the fact that we now have really succeeded in changing the narrative for American investment and American investors coming to Greece, and I've pointed to a number of those. I would also cite Pfizer, Deloitte, Cisco, all of whom have a significant presence now in Thessaloniki. And then also the degree to which our American companies across the board, I would argue, have been good citizens of Greece, and especially during this very difficult 2 years of the pandemic. The way in which American technology companies and all of our companies really stepped up to support the Greek response to the pandemic, whether it was on distance learning or on facilitating access to palliative care. And I contrast that with some of the pushback that we've started to see on Costco from the mayor of Piraeus, from the community, and this sort of discomfort with the China takes all approach that we've tended to see from time to time. So we're all capitalists. We believe in competition. And the key to making that competition healthy is to see that we have good Western alternatives in the picture. Not always American. Very happy to see important European companies coming into this space as well. And in the energy area, for instance, Snam of Italy has emerged with a significant role in Greece. That's just fine from our standpoint.
Can I just get a bit more flavor on what competition means in this context? So you wouldn't be happy to see another Costco Piraeus. You're encouraging investment from American and European competitors. What does that actually mean? Does that mean just a friendly nudge, get involved? Does it mean a willingness to subsidize? Does the market really get a chance to operate?
No, the market has to operate. It's a core principle for the United States. I would start with a couple of points. One, I mean, this is a geostrategically dynamic region. That has been the case for 2,500 years. We just celebrated the anniversary of the Battle of Salamis, and Themistocles up against the Persian fleet. The geography matters. And so Greece's geography and Greece's status as both a core part of Europe, a NATO ally, a member of the European Union, the Eurozone, the Council of Europe, all of those things, is critically important. And frankly, that was the major focus of U.S. interest when I came to Greece in 2016. For President Obama, the reason Greece's fate mattered to the United States was because Greece existed on Europe's frontiers. And so we want to see Greece be successful. It clearly has crossed that Rubicon. I mean, I think the market sees Greece as a success today, and that's why these big American deals keep coming forward. And I think it's very healthy to see the halo effect that has started to emerge around these. The United States can be helpful sort of keeping our companies interested. The U.S. government can be helpful in that regard. The role of our Development Finance Corporation, especially in these strategic and energy sectors, is something that our Congress has endorsed. But ultimately, the market is going to prevail. And so what it really success hinges on the policy choices of the Greek government. And for the past couple of years, we've been fortunate that we've had a Greek government making smart policy choices, and that's why the market's responding.
So you made reference to arriving here in 2016. So over that period, what has been the kind of the nature of the change in U.S.-Greek relations, given a sort of a rocky history?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a couple of things. I mean, the most important thing that has changed is that Greece has regained its status as a normal, successful European state. When I came here, people were worried about whether Greece was going to fall out of the Eurozone, whether one of the big banks would collapse, whether Greece would fail to meet the obligations of the Troika. This week, Greece announced that next month it will repay the last of its IMF loans. It's probably the biggest success story or comeback story in the Eurozone of the past 2 or 3 years. And it's been quite remarkable to watch that. I'm very proud of the role that the United States has played in helping to support and facilitate that process, but I also recognize that it's Greek citizens and the Greek government that did the hard work to achieve that. I'm very proud of the consensus that we have built in Greek society in favor of our relationship. We have made progress, and I have worked for 3 American presidents, very different American presidents, but I've also worked with 2 Greek governments from distinctive ideological perspectives, and I think it's quite significant that we have sustained that progress across those different governments. We've done so because our interests converge, and ultimately that's what matters in this business. States behave according to their national interests. But I think there is a convergence of interests today between Greece and the United States. There's also great appreciation in the United States for the intangibles that Greece possesses. Its democracy, the debt that we owe as Americans to the ancient Athenians, the importance of Greece as a country which has reaffirmed and demonstrated its commitment to democratic values, its commitment to the European Union, its commitment to transatlantic relations at a moment, and through a moment that has been testing for all of us, where our democracy at home in the United States has been tested, where our commitment to our transatlantic relationship has been questioned by some, where some in Europe have argued that Europe needs to go its own way. And I think for the United States, having that kind of an ally here in Greece is of significant value, a value that is compounded by the relationships that Greece enjoys as a bridge between the European Union and the Middle East, our close allies and partners in Cyprus, in Israel, Egypt, the Gulf countries, the way in which Greece leveraged the Abraham Accords to rapidly accelerate its relationships simultaneously with Greece and many of the Arab countries. There aren't many European countries that have that kind of bridge building capacity. And I come back to Themistocles and the Athenian fleet, and you look at the outposts of Hellenic influence during the period of classical Athens, and you realize how much of that is replicated today when you look where is Foreign Minister Dendias or Defense Minister Paniatopoulos or Prime Minister Mitsotakis traveling. And that is of value to the United States as we try to deepen the network of countries that share our values, that share our interests, and seek to build stability. And to come back to your question, I think Greece, when I came here, was viewed by many as a source of problems or a problem to be dealt with. Today, Greece is viewed, certainly by the United States, principally as a source of solutions in the Western Balkans, a source of solutions in the Eastern Mediterranean, a source of solutions in the Black Sea region and beyond.
Warm words, and unfortunately we are out of time, and I know that you have to go to another event, so we're going to have to bid you farewell. But can you join me in thanking Ambassador Pyatt? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
And if I could ask the members of the next panel to come and join me. So 2 people are going to be here with me physically, in person. That's Ana Mendes Godinho and Ana Diamantopoulou. And we're also going to be joined virtually by Nadia Calvino. Okay, I can see people making my way. Great. Hi, Anna. Oh, nice to see you. Hi. Yes, either is fine. Wherever you wish. And I can see Nadia on the screen. Can you hear us? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining us. So just brief introductions, and then we will begin. So on the screen, joining us, presumably from Madrid, I don't actually know, but I'm assuming from Madrid, is Nadia Calvino, Vice President and Minister for the Economy and Digitalization in Spain. To my immediate left, so on your right, Ana Diamantopoulou, Chair of the high-level group on the future of social protection in the EU and of the welfare state in EU members, former European Commissioner, known to everyone here, I'm sure. And to my far left, Ana Mendes Godinho, Minister of Labour, Solidarity and Social Security of Portugal. So we're going to have each of the panelists give a short set of opening remarks, and then we will have a discussion. So Nadia, Minister from Spain, if I could ask you to begin with your remarks, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Andrew, and thanks very much to The Economist for the organization of this very interesting dinner event. I was following it from Madrid, indeed. I am very sorry I was not able to go to Greece. It was absolutely impossible, but I hope I will be able to say hello to Anna and other Greek friends soon in person. Now, just to kickstart the debate, I was reflecting on 3 key ideas which have also been mentioned in the previous discussion with the ambassador. about the European response to the crisis and 3 key ideas that could guide us in this important year, 2022, where we will have to hold important debates, future-oriented, and also make decisions which will shape the future of the Eurozone and the future of the EU for the decades to come. And the first point I'd like to share is the experience we've had to realize once more that we're all on the same boat and that we are much stronger together. I think that the united response, speaking with one voice at the EU level on the health front, particularly when developing and buying the vaccines and then distributing it to the different member states, but also on the economic and social fronts, I think this has been absolutely instrumental to explain why we're having now a strong recovery. The Spanish economy is a good example of a positive outlook for 2022-2023, an outstanding performance of the labor market, a very different exit to previous crises, and in particular the previous financial crisis. And I think that the fact that we have acted in a manner that has been putting persons and citizens at the forefront, and that we acted in a coordinated, in a united manner, has been key. My second point is to start 2022 trying to design tools and make decisions which are future-proof. I am quite sure that this will not be the last crisis that we will have to face, but it would be important to try to make decisions that ensure that this recovery, the strong recovery, is not just a bouncing back, but a sustained recovery in the mid-run and a modernization process. And the deployment of the national recovery plans, these important investment and reform programs, is going to be essential if we want to ensure that we leave for the future generations a healthier, cleaner, more efficient, with better jobs Europe, and with more opportunities. And I think I have to tell you, this is something I'm quite obsessed about, particularly this week when we see the extreme right-wing parties, populist speeches spreading, throughout Europe and trying to provide wrong and easy answers to complex situations. So we have to really be future-oriented in our policies. And my third and final point is precisely about the window of opportunity we have in 2022 to deploy the national recovery plans and to undertake important debates, for example, on the banking union, on the review of our fiscal rules, which are going to be very important to shape the coming decades in the Eurozone. And we should undertake these tasks with a future-oriented approach, leaving behind all debates, the trenches of the past. I think that it is with this constructive attitude that we will be able to tackle these challenges and any other challenges that we may have to face. And this week is bringing up fresh news and maybe uncertainties on the geopolitical front, which again show that if Europe wants to have a strong voice, we need to act in a coordinated manner, and we need to reinforce also our strategic autonomy. So we should profit from this window of opportunity, seize it, and make the right decisions today, so that when we meet again in a gala dinner in some years from now, I hope we will be able to look back and be proud of making the right decisions at the right time in the right manner. Let me close here, and thank you very much again for the opportunity to open the debate.
Thank you very much. That's excellent. What we'll do is we'll have all of the opening remarks and then go into questions. So, Anna, I think you are the next on the agenda. So,
hello, Andrew. Hello to all of you. Hello, Nadia. Hello, my neighbor from Spain. We are always trying to learn from each other. Hello, Anna. Thanks to The Economist. Thank you for the invitation. And just as we've learned from Nadia, I think we all learned many lessons during the pandemic in a very intense and stressing way, under pressure. And what I think right now we live and we face is a special momentum. I would say that we live the opportunity of our lifetimes, and we cannot lose this momentum. What does this mean? This means that we should not be looking at how we can recover from the 2019 GDP, but we must take this momentum to see how we can use the resources we are all mobilizing in a unique way to guarantee that we do change the economy in what needs to be changed. I think the pandemic showed us all that there are many things that need to be changed, many things that have to be accelerated in several dimensions, and it gave us all a special social legitimacy and a social pressure to act and to transform what needs to be transformed. I think we all should aim at look and create a dynamic to foster a new decade of strong economic growth in Europe with ambition. What does this mean, ambition? This means that we must desire and guarantee that Europe has, in fact, the role as a world leader in industry, and this means investment, in digital, in healthcare and biotech. We need to embrace the change. We cannot resist to the moment we live, and we cannot resist to this opportunity. And we must put innovation, and I think this is one of our biggest challenges. We must put innovation in the center of our all public policies and national and European level. What does this mean? It means innovation and change in educational systems, in health systems, in investment rules, in security, in social policies, in social security systems and models that showed during the pandemic that were not prepared to guarantee that they had an answer to everyone, because many people were completely outside of the system, namely young people who have new types of work, new models of work, and they are not in the square that we all imagine as the traditional role. This is a huge moment and a challenge that we live, and where digitalization can have a determinant role. We can all imagine how it can give tailor-made, personalized solutions to everyone, how big data and AI can allow us to guarantee that our policies are evaluated and that they are better planned, or that creativity or entrepreneurship should be a big part of our educational systems. And for this, we have to change. We have to embrace this change with all our efforts and energy. And, of course, about sustainability, here again, Europe must lead in new solutions. Not only solutions for Europe, but also solutions to guarantee that we have a more competitive Europe and a more competitive developing world. Because we also have, and we need to invest in technologies that allow the developing countries to growth following a different path. Well, what we need? We need to guarantee that we maintain resilience, but for this we need stronger and more flexible and efficient institutions. We need more social and economic real cohesion. We need not just the typical traditional cohesion, but we need inclusive growth. We all face, I think, in Europe, a terrible problem in terms of demographic scarce. We don't have people, we have a demographic problem. So we have, again, to guarantee that everyone is part of this growth. This means that we cannot jeopardize, or we cannot have, for example, 20% of our children that are poor, that are outside of the system, and they will not be part of the talent of this development and this growth that needs everyone. Also, we need free movement in Europe for workers, for migrants, to guarantee that we take the advantage of having talent and workforces. Well, for this, we need to mobilize people. And as Nadia was saying, we need to sell this idea in a democratic society that is so divided and often radicalized. Extremists sell you very easily their ideas with black and white, with a very clear picture, because they have clear and loud messages, they have good and fixing ways of giving blame and responsibility to other people. And with the fake news, they spread and get all over. But there's an alternative to black and to white. And I think the moderate have a space for this. And the moderate can be other colors beside gray, because traditionally we've been all gray. This is a time to give color to what we are doing together. There is this alternative, and the alternative is green when you invest in sustainability and in efficiency in energy. It is yellow, purple, it is orange when you act with creativity and not just in policies to foster innovation and to guarantee that we try new solutions in education, in healthcare, in mobility, in skills. Well, but also we can also be red when we assume passion in fighting for a more fair society that does not leave really anyone behind. And these are of course, the colors of the rainbow, the colors of diversity, of answering minorities, because minorities fulfill the whole society. Well, being moderate does not mean being boring. And I think this is our space. That's what we have to show and to put in place. Being moderate means that we can embrace change with no fear. We can shape change with no fear, acting fast and in a way that it serves society better, that creates a better society, a society that is more fair. And this is what we learned from the pandemic. This is what people want: more innovation, more change, more diverse, more inclusion. And you can be passionate about this change. You just have to mobilize people for this change to guarantee that we don't have radicalized movements and to guarantee social peace. We need a compromise for hope, and people want that for us. That's why I agree, and I think that people need leaders that are engaged, that they believe in, and they vote for them. That's what I feel people chose in Portugal, because they felt that there is a movement who is engaged in day-to-day answers to day-to-day people's lives, guaranteeing that we have in our mindset inclusive growth as our theme. Well, the pandemic was a game changer. Let us not lose the momentum to change what needs to need changed, but acting very fast, because time is running out. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Anna Diamantopoulou.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank for this invitation, and I'm really happy that I'm in the same panel with Nadia and Anna. And I'm going to say something only for the Greeks, the others will not understand it. Anna in Portuguese is written with one N, so we have Anna with one N. The topic of our panel is a very broad one. So it is Europe in the pandemic era, recovery, resilience, and cohesion. So what I will do is that I'm going to focus in each of the words of the title of the panel, trying to see the most important issues in these sectors. So first, Europe in the post-pandemic era. What are the most interesting things? Public finances were driven again to a state of crisis. We very well know that deficit and debt ratios increased and are expected to remain high over the next 10 years. This is a problem for many countries. This is a problem for Greece as well. Investment necessities have increased, and have increased in order to reach the goals in digital and climate change transitions. Only at an annual basis, there is a need of 650 billion euros per year in order to reach these goals. COVID has made the pre-COVID vulnerabilities more intense. And in the end, COVID has been an accelerator concerning the impact on the impact that megatrends have in society and economy. Hence, there is a need of a quick and very deep reform in structures. So, economic reform and investment problems. Let's now focus in the three sectors: recovery, resilience, and cohesion. When we are talking now about recovery after the COVID era, we could focus on tools and on goals. What are the tools? At the European level, the 2 trillion euros multi-annual financial framework, the new generation EU program, and of course the RRF, will support the recovery and will build back better. But of course, in order to have a real impact, the impact we really expect, there is a need of conditionality. Maybe we can talk about that in our discussion. And of course, one of the most important issues at the European level is to reorganize the supply chain model, which is one of our biggest problems we understood during the COVID. This concerns the tools. As far as the goals is concerned, I think that the overarching goal is the European sovereignty. How Europe will build its European sovereignty. Firms should stay in Europe. Jobs should stay in Europe. Value should remain at home. And I think it is one of the most important issues for our recovery. Resilience. There are 2 types of resilience: domestic resilience and resilience to external forces. Governments have to build new mechanisms, have to proceed with proactive policies so that economies and societies will contain the future crisis and the expected shocks. That means that at the European level, all governments, because of COVID, have understood very well that we must be proactive, and new, maybe pandemics or other kind of crises are coming. I would like here to emphasize the need of investment in the health system and educational systems, because these are the 2 pillars of social policies which are completely important for the next day of any crisis. Now, resilience to external pressures. What do I mean by that is that is the resilience to geopolitical rivalries and to economic coercion. Europe's primary goal should be to uphold a rules-based international order, a level playing field, which is under assault by China and other actors. The rules-based economy, trade, which was built for years and years, and it was so important for the concept of free trade, now it is in danger of getting fragmented. If Europe wants to avoid it, it should build its own strategic economic cohesion, as I have already said, but at the same time, it should maximize its role in the international organizations and in intergovernmental groups as G20 and G7. And finally, about cohesion. The existing welfare systems in Europe have been built and developed according to the standards of the Second World War post-model. And because of digital transformation and because of the mega trends we have in this 21st century, there is a need of deep reforms. Otherwise, there will be a huge problem in welfare provisions. We know very well that the new models of labor we are going to bring less contributions and less labor tax. So the revenues will reduce and the welfare system will be in danger. Social protections needs to be in the center of new kind of reforms, novel and innovative reforms. And this is the mission of the group that this high-level group that I am chairing. Our mission is to define the new social risks because of this new era, and of course to recommend and to propose new approaches concerning the design of the social protection system and the financing and new models of financing of the social protection system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I hope that Nadia can continue to hear us and is somewhere out there watching. There we are. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we're going to, Nadia, if I can come to you first, and thank you to all of the panelists for your comments. You made a reference to the need for changes to fiscal rules and to institutions, and I took that to be a reference to some of the Stability and Growth Pact constraints that exist in Europe. That's not an immediate problem, it's a 2023 problem, but what exactly would you like to see happen to that fiscal framework that enables you to take advantage of the opportunities that you described?
Yes, indeed. I was referring to the debate on the Stability and Growth Pact, and I do hope that as of the ECOFIN now in March, we will start to discuss the different options, and I do hope that we will approach this issue with a realistic, pragmatic, and future-oriented approach. This is what I was referring to when I said we shouldn't go back to debates of the past. We have a very different starting point from before the pandemic, because all countries have had to increase their deficits and debt to GDP ratios. I think Anna was referring to these. And I think we have all become also starkly aware of the need to undertake a very ambitious investment program. Also, the other Anna with one N said one thing, Anna with two N said the other thing. I think with the three of us, we agree very clearly on the need to undertake a very ambitious investment program. If we want to reinforce our strategic autonomy, if we want to be more resilient and we are in the midst of a technological revolution, which, as all industrial revolutions of the past, is having already a very sharp impact in terms of workplace, in terms of the company functioning, also in terms of the economy as a whole, our societies and our political systems. And Anna was referring to this. And I think we need to accelerate the positive side and the opportunities of this technological revolution, and at the same time avoid the risks which are economic, but they are also political in terms of the emergence of these new approaches, lack of protection of our rights and values. I think this is absolutely essential in this new digital economy. And we have also become intensely aware, I think, as a result of the pandemic, of the need to invest in our social infrastructures. They are just as important as highways and airports. We need to invest in our health systems, in our education systems, in R&D, if we want to make sure that we are stronger in the future. And that requires massive public and private investment in Europe. And I think this pragmatic approach and proactive approach of how do we tackle these challenges, which are global, and we do it together, should be the right starting point for a debate, which is surely going to be very intense, but where I think we are coming at it in a very constructive attitude, judging by the preliminary discussions we have had in different formal and informal fora.
Anna Diamantopoulou, I come to you next, because that call for massive investment makes a lot of sense, but will also cause worry in lots of places. Is the money going to be spent well? The price of money is going to go up because of inflation, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you ensure or assure good spending in the right places with good outcomes if you're splurging away on apparently necessary investment targets?
I think this is a very good question. And being a commissioner and being a minister, I know very well that it is very easy to spend a lot of money with no impact or with not the impact you expected to have. So I think that first, there is a need of simplification of the rules at European level. It is very complicated. We all know that, and we know how difficult it makes the life of governments, of municipalities, of regions. So finally, now, things are very urgent. We need simplification. The second one, which is very important, and we have this experience in Greece, it is that the governments must have the ownership, the national ownership of the plans, of the projects. The European Commission, the European Union has concrete goals on digital transformation and green transition. They are both important and they have been agreed at the European level. But when you go to a national level, you see that there are other problems in regions, there are other priorities. So there are conflicts and say, no, the money must go there. No, we want the money to go otherwhere. So there is a need that the final project must have this national ownership of the government, and the government must persuade and inspire people in order to have the implication. So the third issue is that we need indicators and quantitative goals. We need both. So the government will be evaluated in the elections according to quantitative goals, not generally approaches, and the European Commission must evaluate the projects according to indicators. The final and very important issue, the fourth one, is that in many countries, there is a problem in the administrative structure. I think that it is important after so many years of implementing European projects to check that if the structures do not work, if the organizations at a national level have not implemented the policies in a successful way, the Commission, the European Union, has to support governments to change the models, not to continue with same tools that have not been successful. So I think these are the four important issues that can support the right implementation of this money.
Thank you. Ana Mendez Godinho, one N, Anna. On your opportunities of a lifetime statement, that's both right and sort of it's hard not to be skeptical that it will be taken advantage of. And I mean that in two ways. So for innovation, Europe is caught between the US and China. It is not a technological superpower. It is behind the game. So what does Europe as an innovation superpower look like? I struggle to understand what that is. And then I've got a question on skills, which I want to put to everyone on the panel, so I'll come back to that. If you can take the innovation question.
Well, about your skeptical mood relating the moment we live, I think that 2 years ago, no one would believe that there would be a reaction by Europe as it happened. And this means that impossibles do happen. 2 years ago, we would all of us remember what was the reaction of Europe 10 years ago with the financial crisis. And suddenly, under pressure, under very strong social pressure and health pressure, everything changed. I can give you two examples of what happened during the pandemic. Three. First, the way Europe acted in a different way, protecting jobs, supporting jobs, not defending cuts or restrictions, reacting in a completely different way from 10 years ago. And the results are completely different, as we all know. We can all look at the unemployment rates in the different countries of Europe to see how a different approach does have different results. Second example I would like to share with you was what happened in Porto. I don't know if you remember, during the Portuguese presidency, it was organized a social summit in Porto in the middle of the pandemic. Everyone was locked down. And during the lockdowns, all the leaders of Europe, social society, European social partners, European leaders of the European institutions, European governments, they all met in Porto, and this was in the middle of the pandemic. And they subscribed all a compromise saying, well, Europe in the middle of the pandemic recognizes that in the basis of the recovery, the social dimension will be what will guide us. And this was in the middle of a tension, a brutal tension. This would never happen 2 years ago. This is why I believe that this momentum is real and it can happen. It does need leaders, it does need movement, it does need legitimacy and people believing in it. We have a unique opportunity with the resources that are being mobilized. Of course, they have to be mobilized, I would say, with focus, with simplicity, cutting red burden. And again, during the pandemic, red burden was cut like never happened before. I can share with you the example in Portugal. We did it in one day. We were paying, receiving, paying, reinventing completely the system with innovation. How? We brought innovation into the public system to reinvent the answer, cutting with the traditional ways that, for example, things were done or processes were built. How do we do innovation? We do innovation in schools, guaranteeing that education systems are in fact changed to guarantee that innovation, creativeness are part of the model. This needs courage, it's true, but that's why we are here. I think people who faced the 2 last years, as we all faced, have, I would say, a different vibe and a different energy to tackle this. Innovation, you can invest in innovation, of course. You can guarantee that at the same time, and that was the other example I was going to share with you, innovation happens with more people bringing talent into the system. For more people to bring talent, you need to open the system, open this movement to everyone. During the pandemic, we had a very important sign. For the first time, a mechanism called the European Child Guarantee was approved by unanimously by all the member states. And this was a mechanism where all the member states stated that their priority is to eliminate child poverty in Europe. And this happened in the middle of the pandemic. This shouldn't be maybe the main priority, but this means that 20% of children in Europe that are poor are outside of the system, and without them we have at least 20% less of innovation and 20% less of talent and 20% less of growth. This is just a way of changing our mindset. And our mindset can be changed when we have resources, when we focus these resources into a model that is built, and looking a little bit back with what Anna just said, guaranteeing that the way we decide the investments made is a participated model, involving everyone deciding where we want to put these resources with ambition, yes, of course, but at the same time putting in the first place this inclusive growth model as a pattern, as a mindset.
Okay, unfortunately we're going to have to bring this discussion to an end, but I want to finish with a question to each of Nadia and Anna Diamantopoulou. Just a quick answer, if you may. What should we be looking for as concrete evidence of Europe seizing this opportunity of a resilient, cohesive recovery. So one thing that you would like to see as your kind of marker of success. Nadia, can I come to you first? What's your priority?
Well, this is a very difficult question. I would say probably there is a cold indicator and then a much more qualitative indicator. In terms of the cold quantitative indicator, we will have to see growth levels in Europe, and we will have to see R&D investment in Europe. And that's what Anna was talking about just now, no? Innovation as a driver for potential growth. But I think the qualitative indicator that we should be focusing on is actually the one of inequalities. All indicators that would signal that Europe is moving to a more cohesive, more balanced growth model, those indicators, I think, should be the ones that should be complementing the traditional ones, GDP and others, as we move ahead in order to see if we have succeeded to have a more sustainable growth model from the economic and financial point of view, from the environmental point of view, and also from the social point of view.
Okay, thank you. And last word, briefly, if you would.
I would like to see an independent Europe, which means independent in terms of energy, in terms of technology, and with its own role in the geopolitical landscape. I think this is the basis of changing the internal situation.
Okay, wonderful. We unfortunately have to leave it there, so thank you very much to all of our panelists. Join me in thanking them. Thank you. We're going to take a picture, right? Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, and if you can please join me for the next panel, which is on the digital transformation in 2022, disruptive ideas and the future. Yeah, perfect. If you go there. Great. So to my left is Kostas Axeloglu, the Dean and Professor of International Business and Strategy at the Alba Graduate Business School, American College of Greece. We met 7 months ago, I think. And at the far end of the panel, being mic'd up, Theodosis Michailopoulos, the CEO of Microsoft Greece, Cyprus, and Malta. Welcome. Okay, very brief remarks, I think, Kostas and Theo, and then we'll go into a discussion. So Kostas, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you, Andrew. Good evening to all. Thanks, The Economist, for organizing yet another insightful gala dinner. I'm an academic, and that's a disclaimer, so that I'll touch a few issues on the high level and ending up with some challenges on the talent development. We all agree that there is a flurry of new technologies, the metaverse, the Internet of Things, new platforms through which new services are developed that have an impact on both employers as well as all of us. At the same time, we have the development of artificial intelligence that facilitates the management of data to facilitate services through the new technologies, the Internet of Things and metaverse and the likes. And we also have 5G as the network through which these services become real, have an impact on our lives. Now, the impact can be classified into groups: the companies, the employers, and all of us. The companies in terms of the internal operation of the companies, processes, new product development, new service development, and the likes, as well as their engagement with the rest of the community. And on us, in our everyday life, autonomous cars, smart homes, and are a few examples. Now, if you see the data, currently, most of the innovation is made by companies for them. Just to give you an idea, 65% of artificial intelligence applications and implementation have to deal with B2B applications between companies, so that they can want to improve their operation, they want to improve their new product development, and so on. So imagine what is going to happen when all this new innovation will reach our lives. At the same time, the Internet of Things is expected to enable between $5 trillion and $12 trillion of new value by 2030. That's huge. We haven't seen it before. Now, in this kind of environment that's very disruptive, we have seen already a major challenge, the talent gap. Technology changes. We don't have enough time to adjust to new technologies. New jobs and new professions become available, others become obsolete, and there is a gap where the companies really need new talent, but they cannot find it. We have done some work there, all the stakeholders, companies, by developing internal processes to continuous training of their employees, institutions, academic institutions with new programs and so on, even individuals getting into the mindset of continuous learning. The answer is lifelong learning. And we have done good work there. However, during the pandemic, and especially the second part of it, we also see a new trend. It's called the Great Attrition. From April 2021 to September 2021, in a few months, 19 million employees quitted their jobs in the United States. Quitted their jobs. 40% of them without having another job. People are leaving without having another job. Haven't seen it before. Why? Well, and that's the major challenge now. Employees care about other things than in the past. In the past, our relationship with our employer was transactional. Salaries, perks, benefits. Now, we want to have a joint purpose with the rest of our colleagues and the company. We want to have a sense of belongingness to the company, as opposed to just salaries and perks. That's what employees are looking for. And this requires a major change in the mindset of companies. Instead of offering more to our employees, we need to lead them differently in order to make our place a great workplace to work. And that's a challenge. Why? Because it requires a change in the culture of the company, of the employer. So, because my time is off, I think. Besides having the talent gap, which we're trying to deal with in the last few years because of the disruption, now we have the great attrition. And the challenge for the employers is to make their places an attractive place to work. And that requires a totally different leadership style and a totally different mindset, a difference in culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that sets you up very nicely. So yes. As the CEO of Microsoft Greece, Cyprus, Malta, are people looking for different things, and how are you responding?
Yes, the great resignation, as we call it, is there, definitely. Now, I will try to articulate based on this point how we did it, what we're trying to do in Greece. So our purpose as Microsoft in Greece was to be an enabler for growth and for the aspirations that the Greek state and the Greek country had. And if you look what has happened in the last 2 years in digitizing, for example, the public sector, and how a cloud-enabled vaccination platform was one of the most efficient in Europe. Who would have thought that some years ago? Or you can see the impact that technology is bringing to companies like the one Ambassador Payat talked about, JP Morgan acquiring a significant % of Viva, a cloud-enabled payment provider, one of the first in Europe. So I believe that there is a tremendous momentum in that aspect. We as Microsoft, we had a purpose-focused GR for growth, as we called it, plan, which of course, first of all, goes to the infrastructure. We are working on 3 hyperscale data centers in Greece. And trust me, infrastructure is very important as an investment always for a country. But on top, we are looking to reskill and upskill 100,000 of our fellow citizens. Very important, but still talent gap is there. Then we are supporting the green transition. We signed recently an MOU with the biggest energy provider in Greece to support this journey. By 2025, our data centers will run in green energy, also in Greece. And keep in mind that whenever you take something from a server to the cloud, to our data centers, we are far more efficient than that. And also we are digitizing the cultural, we are supporting the government to digitize the cultural heritage, like ancient Olympia, changing the way the tourists are seeing the monument. So we think that there is a huge opportunity and there is a big momentum. Challenges are there. You talked about this, geopolitical, inflation. I would call out the biggest opportunity probably for Greece. I think that the RRF program is probably the biggest opportunity since the Marshall Plan. I think that we can have a tremendous impact on our country if we utilize in the right way. And on the other hand, I agree with Mr. Akşoglu that by far the talent gap that we're seeing in the market is very big. And
what is that gap? For both of you to just explain a little bit, where is the gap? What actually is missing? And whose responsibility is it to fill it? Is it government? Is it business?
Yeah, that's a big discussion. Should I start?
Absolutely.
So first of all, to make it pragmatic, the gap is that we have our partners and our customers out there looking for technical talent. And if you see, through LinkedIn is a platform we have, if we see the skills required by the market, software engineer, data analyst, data engineers, we cannot find enough people, and our partners cannot find enough people. And the easy way to see it is that, okay, we don't have enough STEM graduates, and that's a contradiction. We are on European average. So there's something wrong, in our view, with how, from university, you connect them to the market. We're not doing this enough. And yes, this is our shared responsibility, I think. We need to talk about internships, apprenticeships. We need to step into that, but we need also to have the legal framework for this. This is a huge problem because each one is hitting the other, the employees of the other company. So we are in a desperate need of on change of that will create the necessary talent gap, especially in the technology, especially in view of the RRF, that there is a huge transformation that will happen all around Europe, and we need more hands.
I think that the talent gap is not a Greek phenomenon. It's a world phenomenon. It happens everywhere. Second, I don't think that there is anybody responsible for it. Who is responsible? I guess, well, somebody should be responsible, besides God. That always we give it to him, right? Technology, that it is disruptive, meaning that changes things in a totally different way. So the technology does not change things incrementally. Well, we are here and then we're moving there. It changes the upside down, right? Technology. Globalization, that takes the impact of a new technology and propagates it everywhere in the world and makes it exponential. And therefore, we, human beings, don't have enough time to adjust. That's the problem with talent gap. And individually, we don't have time to adjust. Companies do not have time to adjust on that. Academic institutions do not have time to adjust, and so on. So the problem of talent gap is the result of all this technological innovation and globalization. That was happening in the past. 100 years ago, we had technological innovation, but we had enough time to adjust. Things were not going so quickly. Now we don't. What is the answer? Lifelong learning. We need to learn all the time, but to learn all the time, we need a certain mindset of learning, attitude for learning. I came here personally to learn from you. I have nothing to say individually, but I came here to hear Theo, to hear what Anna's 1N, 2N, whatever, right, have to say, what our minister has to say. That's an opportunity for me to learn. That's a mindset of all of us of learning. That's how you cover talent gap. Talent gap will be here all the time. We cannot beat it, but at least we have an answer on how to do it.
So lifelong learning is a lovely, lovely idea, but you've got to know what to learn, right? So, and Microsoft ought to know better than anyone virtually on the planet what skills are going to be needed in the next 5 to 10 years. So do you know, and how do you bridge the gap that you described? You should be telling us.
Yeah. So I think that that's the 1 million question. Probably I don't have an easy answer, but I have to say that I think lifelong learning and the need for upskilling and reskilling is there. But let's be very realistic that we need to get more people earlier in their lives, and also females. We have also female technology talent gap in coding. You cannot get anywhere if you don't know coding and you get in the mindset of that. There you can move easier to different aspects, but I have to tell you that for sure reskilling and upskilling will be something that will help us going forward. But inevitably, education system needs to ensure that people graduate with the right skills, and hopefully more people in the technology area, because apparently this is the area that needs more hands as we go through.
Let's talk a little bit about hybrid working. We don't have a lot of time left, but possibly the single biggest effect of the pandemic over time will be the impact on the workplace, and us not all being in offices all the time. So how do you see that looking? And how do we make this work for workers and for companies? Kostas?
I think that we are moving because of that. It was a great experience of the pandemic that impacted all of us at the same time. I think that we are moving in a world where jobs are location agnostic, if I may say so. In other words, it doesn't matter from where you work. And this is very important, and this is very important for people's mind. Part of their great place to work might be that, so that they can work from everywhere, they can work in a hybrid model and so on. Now, if we move in this kind of model of location being, or work being location agnostic, then this creates a lot of opportunities, especially for this country, because we might have a lot of employees, a lot of workers, high-end workers, working here and offering their service all over the world. We call them digital nomads, right? So this is the workplace environment I see, where you have a flexibility to work on campus or on the office or remotely. And what we have seen in this great attrition is that people are quitting their jobs, but they are not quitting necessarily their locations. They want to stay in the same location because the social network is very important for them. So jobs become location agnostic. People prefer the location as opposed to the job.
Yeah. Look, I agree on the concept. I have to say that as Microsoft, we believe in the hybrid workplace. We think that certain things cannot be subsidized, and human factor will always make a difference. Now, based on how we see our employees and what we ask from them, and also from our customers, apparently we are a provider, one of the remote working tools, we see that flexibility is probably the one thing that makes the biggest difference. The problem with that is that flexibility requires a new progressive legislation on how to act on this, and you have also to be careful of how you create burnout effects, work-life balance for the people, etc. But I think that the important thing for the hybrid is, first of all, how you also create the inclusiveness. The problem we see at the moment is that people that are, you talked in the beginning, Andrew, people that are at the office seems to have a better performance, or better, people think of them higher than the ones that are away. Also, imagine in meetings. If we are here, then someone is there. We have a different way of connecting. That's where metaverse comes into place. And we hope that with our tools, we will use avatars, etc., with the main target to include better. And, but I think that there are some serious questions we all have to answer. I was thinking that on your introduction, the real question is that I have, some of our customers want people to be there, for example, and they invite them. So I have 2 salespeople, 2 technical salespeople, and the one says, no, I want to I feel it's risky. The other said, I will go. How do you manage this? Because the one that goes, but then the other has the risks. It's a very difficult aspect, and we have to be very careful on how, and I have to tell you that as leaders, I think this is the biggest question that we have to answer. But we hope that the tools and the hybrid workplace is something that is here to stay, and we need to answer this together, probably with the government on the way we legislate. The old 8 hours continuous shift will not be there because this is not flexible. But then how do we ensure that employees and employers do not take advantage of this? That's a big question.
Last question is around the metaverse. What is it, and are we going to enjoy it?
Theo,
your
turn.
So, yeah, good question. So metaverse is, let's say, the way that we can integrate the physical with the digital world, and we connect places, people, things, etc. So the metaverses are already out there. Some of your kids, maybe, that are playing games, that's the biggest metaverse we have today. Call of Duty, Fortnite, whatever is the biggest metaverses today. So this is an opportunity. I think that the area has a huge opportunity, apart from gaming, to change the way we feel. For example, the hybrid working, yes, I do believe that avatars and having a different way of connecting versus screen will definitely change the way people perceive that. Or, for example, if you're in a supermarket and you walk to find a toothpaste and you want to ask someone if there are some virtual assistants there, like bots, that's a metaverse because they are in the physical world, but they are digital, and then they can help you get around. So I think it sounds more sci-fi than it actually is. We will see it more and more. Yes, it's big, but I think it's about us, how we will create the framework with ethical AI, etc., to make this to make this change a big improvement in our lives.
Kostas?
I think that he said it all, so I'm not going to add anything. I think that the metaverse is the ultimate network or a platform of symbiosis between humans and the machine, the technology. And I think that that's going to be a challenge, and the ethical part is a very significant question there. Yeah. How we frame it so that it still is human, as opposed to machine.
Good. Our time is up, unfortunately, so if you can join me in thanking Theo and Kostas for their panel presentations. Thank you. And I'm hoping that we have a guest arriving. So we've got photos. I keep forgetting this. Sorry. Thank you very much. Thank you. After you. So the minister is here. Hello, Minister Staikouras. Would you like to come and join me? Are you going to the podium? I think you're giving a speech, are you not? Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, nice to see you. So Christos Staikouras needs no introduction, Minister of Finance for Greece. He will be talking for 15 minutes. No questions, unfortunately, tonight, but hopefully some exciting announcements on Greece's economy in 2022.
Thank you, Andrew. I would like to thank the organizers for the honorary invitation to close the works of the World Ahead 2022, making a brief overview of the course of the Greek economy and its prospects for the current year and the next. paths and prospects that inspire optimism despite the veil of liquidity, uncertainty, and the difficulties caused by the geopolitical, pandemic, and energy crisis on a global and European level. I will attempt by documenting things and with realism, in moderation and with the recognition of the difficulties faced by the economic units, households and businesses. Dear all, Greece in 2021 almost completely recovered from the losses of 2020 due to the onset of the pandemic and is entering a trajectory of high long-term growth. The recovery of the Greek economy, type V, exceeded, as everything shows, the forecasts, and is expected to be the second largest in the Eurozone. The winter forecast announced by the European Commission last Thursday confirms that. In addition, it is predicted that this strong recovery will be followed by high and sustainable growth both this year and in the years to come. The forecast shows that our country is expected to achieve the second highest cumulatively growth in the 3 years 2021-2023. The above reveals a strong dynamic reflected in a series of macroeconomic variables and indicators. First, the increase of gross domestic product is mainly based on investments and exports. International investment groups, we have seen some of them today, are tied to our country, giving a vote of confidence in its presence and future. Overall, investments are the second largest increase in the Eurozone, and exports are at historically high levels. Investments and extroversion that create jobs and incomes while giving sustainability to economic growth. Second, disposable household income is supported. In the first 9 months of 2021, this was increased by 3.5 billion euros compared to 2019, according to Elstat. Moreover, according to the recent relevant report of the European Central Bank, the real disposable income of Greek households, the real, I underline, the third quarter of 2021, showed an annual increase of 4.7%, taking inflation into consideration. This is the second largest increase in the Eurozone, 6 times above the European average. These figures converge with those recently published by both Elstat and the OECD. In fact, according to the OECD, the real per capita income of Greek households showed the second largest annual increase among its member states. Of course, we fully understand that the significant rise of inflation in recent months and the months to come is decreasing the disposable household income. However, the impact of inflationary pressures is mitigated due to the previous increase in disposable income, which, as a result of tax cut and insurance contributions and the generous society support measures designed and implemented by the government. Third, unemployment is decreasing. Greece presents the best European performance during the health crisis. The government interventions of the last 2 years have eliminated the, in fact, true danger of mass padlocks and layoffs. The above-mentioned report of the European Central Bank shows that our country has achieved the largest reduction in unemployment in the euro area, and as a result, it is no longer the country with the highest European unemployment rate. My friend Nadia Calvino faces the same problems in Spain. Today, the number of unemployed persons is at the level of 2010, without, of course, the high unemployment rate being something we are proud of. We must do more hand in hand with the businesses to decrease it even further. Fourth, household and business deposits are boosted. They are increased by 43 billion euros compared to June 2019, with 52% of the increase coming from households. Fifth, the turnover of companies in 2021 was reinforced. According to Elstat announcements, so we had an increase of turnover of businesses in Greece plus 16% since 2019. This reflects resilience of Greek companies in the midst of a pandemic, but also the dynamics that the businesses have because of their adaptability and the brave state support that has been provided throughout this difficult period. And sixth, the Economic Climate Index, the market psychology, was in January at the highest point of the last 21 years, exceeding the European average once again, because in all data, we should compare the situation at European level. This positive dynamics of the Greek economy is also reflected in the declared recognition by partners, international institutions, rating agencies, and investors, thanks to the implementation of a prudent, methodical, reformist, and far-sighted fiscal policy. A policy that has been adopted immediately and effectively to the emergencies of multiple crises, unfortunately. A policy that kept society and the economy afloat, with measures totaling 44 billion euros to tackle the economic consequences of the pandemic, a policy that immediately mobilized short-term interventions to deal with the effects of the energy crisis and the consequent price increases, with measures totaling to date 2.1 billion euros. Support that will continue for as long as needed. Policy that supported the middle class and the weak parts of the society, relieved citizens of high tax burdens, provided, and I heard that earlier, tax incentives to attract investments and investors, young people from abroad, and family offices, a policy that promoted structural reforms and privatizations, strengthened the credibility, prestige, and credit rating of the country, a policy that took advantage of fiscal flexibility without any derailments, a policy that seized the opportunity of our times, the recovery fund, and you have high expectations from government, a policy that maintained a healthy and secure state fund, created fiscal space for further community support interventions, such as the further permanent reduction of NFIA, property tax, and by increasing minimum wage, sharply reduced non-performing loans, achieved steadily negative borrowing costs in the money markets and low borrowing costs in the capital market, taking into account the conditions prevailing internationally lately, a policy that improved the competitiveness of the Greek economy. Dear all the above certify that the statistics and above all the dynamics of the big picture of the Greek economy is positive and its prospects are even more positive. However, as a government and as economic staff, we do not celebrate, and of course we don't feel complacent. We are fully aware of the fact that despite the promising big picture, the photo of the moment, the snapshot, has shadows due to significant difficulties and challenges. Difficulties and challenges endogenous and exogenous. On the one hand, our country has a sustainable public debt as recognized in all European decisions and assessments, but this is particularly high. Greece showed a high primary deficit in 2021, rightly so, to form an adequate safety net for society and the economy. The country is still the only one in Europe under enhanced surveillance and has no investment grade. On the other hand, at European level, monetary and fiscal policy will gradually become more restrictive. The lack of investment level in an environment of uncertainty that prevails lately regarding the monetary policy in Europe is the reason that makes the yields of Greek bonds more sensitive to international volatility. And of course, we still face the challenges of the pandemics, the energy crisis, and inflation, the climate crisis, and the green transition, as well as old and new geopolitical challenges. Therefore, the continuation of implementation of a prudent and responsible economic policy, the continuation of the support of the society towards and above, towards the above-mentioned challenges with targeted measures within the framework of the budget forecast, as well as the continuation of the reforms, structural changes, and privatizations are important tools. To this end, we have set 8 central priorities in our economic policy. First, maintaining high rates of economic growth in the coming years. According to European statements, this is achieved. Second, furthermore important, to improve the composition of GDP with significant increase of own investments and exports to achieve what the system always wanted, productive reform of society. And according to European estimates, we will have best performance in the next decade in exports and investments. Not only high growth, but sustainable growth. Third priority, exit of the country from the status of enhanced supervision within 2022. To this end, we are successfully completing the periodic evaluation of the European institutions, having already raised this issue at European level. Fourth, achieving single-digit percentage of non-performing loans in Greek bank portfolios within 2022. This has already seemed to be achieved. 2 out of 4 systemic institutions in our country have single-digit percentage in 2021. Of course, private debt has not decreased, has been moved outside the portfolios of the bank, but the quality of assets is improved. So, having access to international markets, the bank system to be able to help the liquidity in the Greek economy. Number 5, significant fiscal improvement in 2022 and achievement of realistic primary surpluses driven by high growth from 2023. Number 6, acquisition of investment grade in 2023. A requirement for that is to achieve the 5 previous goals. That is why we move systematically and with timetables, and we are quite successful in that despite the crisis of the 3 past years. Number 7, strengthen liquidity in the real economy by implementing policies such as reducing NPLs and utilizing the 12.7 billion euros recovery fund loan portfolio and the new framework for private regulation, for the regulation of private debt. Number 8, rational utilization of available European funds with the spearhead, with the Recovery and Resilience Fund being at the spearhead, and the new NSRF totaling about 80 billion euros by 2027. Already 103 projects with a budget of over 6 billion euros have joined the fund, and projects that improve the daily life and quality of life of citizens, and they cover areas such as health, education, research and innovation, improving public services, tackling the climate crisis, energy, infrastructure and transport, justice, culture, agri-food, etc. Our country has received the highest pre-financing in Europe and has submitted the first payment request, while we have signed business agreements with credit institutions and international banking institutions, EIB, EBRD, to utilize the loan portfolio of the fund. At this point, I must emphasize that in the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience, Greece 2.0, we have set ambitious but realistic goals for investments and reforms aimed at tackling climate change. Subsidies from the Recovery and Resilience Fund are expected to absorb in Greece 38% of investments and reforms with green label. Dear all, what I have summarized before proves that the government of New Democracy, even in this variety of harsh constraints imposed on us by the complex and liquid international and fluid international environment that prevails, works responsibly towards its homeland and its citizens, but also towards the vision of the European integration. We continue the demanding upward path so that the positive big picture of the economy and the auspicious prospects are justified as soon as possible offering to households and businesses the benefits of high, sustainable, and social just growth from this year on. Dear all, with our strategy and our policies, we look forward to the integration of the Greek economy in the modern and dynamic economies of Europe and to the overall strengthening of our country, as we have seen today from the discussions in the Parliament. And this can be achieved with the contribution and assistance of all of you, social and political forces, with responsibility and moderation. Thank you all very much.
Very much. Okay, dinner is served. Enjoy.
wealthiest, the most successful people are generally international.
The world is becoming an ever volatile, ever changing place, changing much faster than it did before. There's a class of person out there now who's actually rapidly adapting to the changing environments.
The world is moving to global citizens.
Henley & Partners is a unique firm that is addressing the needs of this global citizen.
Like so many times in life, you don't get aware of the need until you really ended up in a situation, and then it's too late.
Where it's quite useful to have just options.
Ultimately, quality of life, education, mobility, security, and tax. In this international and global world that we're in, these are the tools you want.
Truly the ultimate symbol of freedom.
Yes, being free.
It's the ability to live where you want, travel where you want, raise your kids where you want, and not subject your family to the fate of where you happen to be born. You actually get to choose.
I find that Henley & Partners are a professional company, but they're also very approachable.
Very open communication. It's like you know somebody for 30 years.
Always starts with an initial meeting where we really establish whether we are the right people to deal with and whether the client is right for us.
Well, from the point of view of the clients, and I've heard this from so many of their clients, the word family just comes up over and over again. It doesn't feel so much like going and talking to a professional services firm. It feels like a family.
And what we found is when we turn to Henley & Partners is we get the answers right away, and it's straightforward, and the timelines are condensed dramatically, and that gives us very much a sense of comfort that we're in good hands and we're with people who know what they're doing. It's a fantastic kind of all-encompassing service that you get when you come to Henley & Partners.
They know they're courteous.
They are providing a true service to these global high net worth individuals that are concerned about taxes, concerned about their freedom, concerned about the safety of their families.
And that's what Henley & Partners offers our clients, and that's what Henley & Partners helps create and construct for governments.
The fact that they have so much experience actually working with governments to set up these investor schemes means, A, that they understand them back to front, because they've designed many of them themselves. I mean, they're there working with the governments to create them.
Henley & Partners is really the firm that created this industry, pioneering many of these programs.
I'm not aware of any other company that has the knowledge of both sides of the equation so deeply, so intimately, that they can really claim to be experts on both sides.
That's what Henley & Partners does, and we do it very well.
It hasn't been such a long time since people first started shopping online, and it was easy to keep up with the clicks. Little by little by little by more, the clicks added up to be more than the stores, and e-tailers worked harder than ever before because they had to keep up with the clicks. The clicks came from laptops, then tablets and phones, Monday through Sunday, office and home, 24 hours in every zone, and still they kept up with the clicks. Now shoppers ask more from the websites they're on, their language, their currency, their way, or they're gone, so you'd better keep up with the clicks. All of a sudden, there are so many must-dos if you want to keep selling, like delivery there, no there, or there.
And make it tomorrow, first thing.
No time for borders. Gotta stay in control to stay in the flow and continue to grow. But we'll help you. Keep up with the clicks.